When you live to tick it before you kick it, it's pretty important that you power your adventure with the right nutrition. Not just when you decide to take on the biggest physical and mental challenge of your life, like I did retracing the 1928 Tour de France, but also as a part of everyday living. Working overtime on a double shift, running the kids all over town to their sporting events, adding a few extra miles to your weekly hike, or getting sleep deprived with a hectic travel schedule. I'm proud to announce BUCKiT Nutrition is now an official sponsor of our podcast, and just for you, giving a 10% discount on all BUCKiT nutritional products. Go to Amazon.com and use promo code BUCKiT10, that's BUCKiT with an IT, 10, for a 10% discount on BUCKiT nutritional products. Great tasting, high-performance nutrition to help you take it before you kick it. Writer's block had set in when two female comedy writers in LA put down their pens and declared that they'd run out of material. But then a light bulb moment and an idea is hatched. Sarah Haskins will marry her next-door neighbor, a man 20 years her senior with ex-wives and a lot of children. It's just too good to pass up. They get back to work, and at that moment, a trophy wife comes to existence.
I knew I couldn't go back.
You just put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the BUCKiT Podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week, I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
Start telling your stories and then accept the fact that you're gonna get better at telling them. Initially, as a young writer, if you put something out into the world and people don't respond to it, you might not be looking at your work on the level of craft. Maybe it's time to take a step back and say, okay, is this as funny as possible? Or is this the premise that needs to get this point across?
Sarah Haskins and Emily Halpern are writers and producers on CBS's Carol's Second Act, starring Patricia Heaton. They also co-created ABC sitcom Trophy Wife, based on Sarah's marriage to her much older husband. Their first project together, the funny, edgy coming-of-age movie Booksmart, was actually written in 2009 about two overachieving girls who realize that the only thing they really haven't accomplished is getting boyfriends. It has a lot of twists and turns, just like their journey to get the film made in the first place. For 10 years, the script was shopped around and turned down, reworked, then shopped again, then reworked, and then shopped again, until finally, Olivia Wilde agreed to direct it in 2009. Booksmart opened to critical acclaim. I caught up with Emily and Sarah when they were taking a break from writing. We shared a lot of laughs, and I learned their amazing story about how they landed their dream job. I'm here with Sarah and Emily, and it is, what day is it? Tuesday? Wednesday.
Wednesday.
A Wednesday. But what does it matter, because this is living somewhere, anytime. And I know it's an exciting time for you because you've got a new show coming out and it's so exciting. And so I appreciate you stopping by, having a chat, and really wanted to talk to you because I see you guys as these young mavericks.
Thank you.
And I had the opportunity to see your latest film, Booksmart, and people really enjoyed your film.
It's great.
And so how much of Booksmart, well, first of all, I guess maybe just tell us, was that your life at school? Was that what we were looking at? Is that where you were writing this film from?
The initial idea, the initial script we wrote was about two nerdy overachievers who want to have some fun in high school and maybe get some boyfriends. And I wouldn't say autobiographical.
But I would say we held a lot of leadership positions.
I would say being a nerdy overachiever in high school was not unfamiliar to us.
And so you didn't meet each other until you got to college then, right?
Yeah.
And what was it about each other that you liked? Because now you're this great writing team, and you've done some great stuff. What was it that attracted you to each other as collaborators?
Well, we met initially as friends. Emily was dating one of my best guy friends, and it was my senior spring. Emily is younger, and I was just like, oh my God, I want to hang out with Emily. Like, she's really fun too. And then apparently I was like shoehorning my way into all their dates. I didn't know it.
I mean,
I thought it was like a fun 3 people.
A fun 3 people. I don't know if that's ever fun, by the way.
Definitely
my
not.
perspective, I always really liked Sarah, but I was with my then boyfriend, and we'd be going out, and just sort of at the last minute, it'd be like, Sarah's joining. I'd be
What's
like,
up, guys?
That's great.
bad, but it's strange. But in a lot of general meetings we've talked about, we're like, well, that relationship didn't last, but this one did.
A lot of people in Hollywood, of course, love to write the story about how things happen quickly. You know, now you've got the release of this new series on CBS, and people want to write the story about, wow, they're young, because you guys are so young. But this has been a journey. I mean, this goes back to when you guys first met in college, and all those hours and hours of writing and putting things together. And can you give us a sense of that journey? Like the first time you sat down together and wrote, do you remember that?
Well, that was 2008. So
Yeah.
we met in like 2001.
Yeah.
And then, I moved out here in 2008. Emily had been in LA. And we had dinner and both talked about how so many of the teen movies out were just reflecting the guy's experience.
Yes.
And, there are movies we loved. We think they're hilarious. But we're like, a girl comes at this with a completely different perspective. And Emily had been thinking along the same lines. And so we were like, let's write this movie for women.
Well, it really did. For me, was because I've watched those films too, those guy films, and we all remember Animal House and all of those kind of guy films. But this was a really unique perspective. It was kind of cool to see. I felt like I was a fly on the wall, getting to see inside the mind of of these young women. So you really did that, and that's what people are saying too, I guess, about the film.
Yeah, and it's very gratifying, because that was kind of the original concept. We wanted to see it from the perspective we experienced, as opposed, we love all those comedies, but it was always about the guy getting laid, and we just felt like that's just not how nerdy girls think. Well, we were just like, can I just have a boyfriend and hold his hand in the hallway?
I have no expectations of getting laid in one night.
Yeah, I think you've opened it up for young girls to be able to also laugh at themselves, like guys, done that for so long, and it looked like crazy. But the film is doing really well. I mean, it's in theaters all over the country, and
yeah, it's gotten a great critical reception. We were very lucky because it also it's very much the premise that we envisioned, and over the year, it has had a very long evolution, and it's been updated, and there were other writers brought in, and Olivia Wilde did such a fantastic job as director, but we feel like it really did retain that original just intention.
When Olivia Wilde said that she was interested, because the script got sent to her, right, and she reads it, did you worry that maybe her experience at high school wasn't the same experience that maybe
what
those
could be the difference between us and Olivia
Well,
Wilde?
no, I'm only saying from the point of view, like, because of the fact that her experience, I don't know, was that her experience, or?
I think this whole experience has been so, long. Like, we wrote the first draft in 2008. It is now 2019 and the movie is out. But we've been very lucky and blessed that, like, everyone who's been added to this project has been genuinely additive and has respected the original spirit, I think, of the project. And that is not always the case.
Yeah, it isn't the case,
no,
right?
It's...
there were bumps along, or no, I shouldn't say bump, because it obviously landed in a great place. But we did run into sort of what you were talking about. I remember it was Booksmart has had a home at multiple studios along the way, and at one point it was with an executive who clearly had not had the same high school experience and seemed to not be able to comprehend, like, the experience of wanting a boyfriend and not immediately having one. And
she was like, so if they want boyfriends, why don't they just get them? And we were like, well,
it doesn't really work like that sometimes.
But so, like Sarah said, we just feel so lucky that it eventually landed with people who did either relate to that experience or could show it from that perspective.
Well, I'm suggesting that people go see it, and if you were going to tease it, how would you tease this film?
2 girls basically who've been nerdy overachievers their whole high school career decide on, like, the last night of high school, it is time to party.
Yeah, and I love that moment when they've worked so hard, they've got such great, all these grades, and all these other people around them who they think are all the slackers tell them what university they're going to, and you're like going to these, but you haven't just been working all the time. You've been having a good time.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a horrifying epiphany for people who have been really grinding out those AP classes.
Was that something that happened in your own life, that particular moment when you realized that maybe you had your head down and you weren't looking out to party?
I think that's the heightening that made the movie funny.
Yeah,
like, I think we were, aware in high school that other people were having fun and were also smart, but it's also a little bit about the box you build for yourself. This is who I am, this is what I do, I'm not that person, and then learning to maybe be a little less judgmental about yourself, about other people, about opening up experience and sort of looking around. Like, just because they have fun doesn't necessarily mean like they're bad or not going to succeed in life.
And they really did let go, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, that. And you are obviously both very book smart. You both went to Harvard.
Yeah, and we were different years and weren't thinking of teaming up, as we weren't thinking of collaborating professionally at that point. I don't think I wasn't thinking about anything professionally, but yeah, we knew each other socially.
And so this journey, give us a sense of how hard it has been to get to this point, because now we just see the success. You, like I said, you're so young. You got a film out in the theater. You got a new CBS show coming out, which is when is it going to air?
September 26th, Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday's 9:30.
Yes. Look at that. Boom. Somebody's prompted you. I think there's a publicist nearby. When was that again?
Yeah, we just got electrocuted.
Yes.
Thursday, September 26th at 9:30.
Okay. And this
PM.
is and what does it feel like to be writers, to be launching a new show? What do you lose sleep when you think about launching something new out into the world? Because especially network television, it's about, well, what did it do? What was the number? What was the 18 to 49?
Right.
So how do you feel?
I think we feel very good. We feel really excited. We've been writing partners for many years. We've had a lot of different professional experiences, been on shows where we've had positive experiences and then shows where we've had less positive experiences. But we've been talking about how this moment at least feels like the culmination of a lot of those experiences. We feel like we've learned a lot. We're we're a place where we're very comfortable working with each other. I think we feel excited. Like, it is challenging. We do lose sleep. I'd be lying if I said we didn't, but I think we're excited for the opportunity.
I'm excited for you guys because I love that you have got together and you've put in all this hard work, and now it's the culmination of all of that, years and years of work.
Yeah.
And I think about that, like, I think we were lucky because we've at different points in our careers had great mentors, had good opportunities, have been open to learning from the good and bad experiences. But I think even before we were really working in Hollywood, like, there were 8 years of working very hard. I was in Chicago, Emily was here and in New York, and like making no progress in a traditional sense, or gathering those experiences. And this is a long way of saying, I think if you're going to be in the arts, you have to be into the journey.
Yes.
And into every project should be fulfilling for you, even if you are not going to be famous or you're not going to be rich. Like, it's really got to be about living in the moment and enjoying the experience that you're currently having. And I think that helps abate my anxiety a little bit about this, because our job is really to write and produce, at least initially, 13 great scripts. And to a certain extent, like, we can make those as good as possible, and we still can't control the reception. So you're busy enough focusing on the moment to sort of be able to take a step back and say, and I hope the audience is receptive.
That's a lot of wisdom coming from a young writer.
I love you keep saying I'm young. This is very flattering.
Well, but you are. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary what you've done. But I just don't want people also to forget the fact that you've also put in so many years of really hard work. And like you said, you've dug deep, and it has been a long journey. But I think that just speaks again to the fact that you're doing what you love.
I do think there's kind of sometimes a natural weeding out process, because if it's not what you're passionate about and it's not what you love, you might not stick with it through all the years, because it is really hard. And if one thing doesn't work out and it's not the success you were hoping, you're on to the next thing. It's not, if it is all about the success, they come and go.
It must be good having somebody to lean on.
Oh, it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. I'm very grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, Sarah.
All right, I'm taking it that you guys lean on each other a lot then. It must be, though, because it would be very lonely sometimes to be a writer. I'm talking to Robert Greene, who wrote, The Laws of Human Nature. He was saying as a writer, it can get incredibly challenging to just sit down and go through that mundane part of the journey that you're talking about.
We literally write separately and put our works together. But I think where it's so valuable having a partner is that, especially in television, you're building a vision, right, that you have to communicate out into the world. And there are 700 people who are all giving you notes and points of view on your vision. And it's really helpful to have someone else to talk those through with and say, is this what it is? Are we listening to this right? It sometimes can feel like an assault.
Right.
Not an intentional assault, but you have to. It's so nice to have someone to go through the business part of this with.
That must be tough to navigate sometimes, where you're getting these notes. They're saying it for a reason, but then maybe you're just not getting. Well, what I don't. It's clear to you, but the note is coming in. I guess when you see that note being repeated by different people, of all these people who've got an opinion.
700. That is a precise, real number.
700. I didn't realize it was that high. I thought it was, but that's.
You think it's 20? It's not.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
But how do you, as creators, deal with that? What do they say? It's easier to critique than it is to create. You guys are creating, so it's much easier for someone to look at what's on the page and go,
I think it's partly having done this for a long time. In the beginning, I would say both of us were probably a little more precious about it, but these are our words and this is the vision, and it's one of the great things about having a partner. You just learn to collaborate very quickly and easily because already you're working with someone else and you're sharing ideas.
And you respect each other so much.
Exactly. And I think we had the early days of our partnership, it took us. We were very polite to each other in the very beginning and couldn't critique
now you
each
yell
other.
and scream?
No, but we can be honest about. I think I actually think the first draft of Booksmart was something like 160 pages because neither of us could say to the other one, "I don't like that idea."
Oh, you keep that scene. I'll keep that scene.
Exactly. We'll just put in every idea.
The filters
this is
go.
a 10-part miniseries.
But no, you just learn it over time, and I think our perspective is also every script can always get better, and anyone who is giving a note is trying to help that happen. So even if the note itself isn't feeling particularly helpful, or maybe it's not clear what they're asking for, it's our general feeling is take a step back. What are they bumping on? Try and figure that out. See some change we can make.
And in the end, sometimes they can be hugely useful.
Absolutely.
Because, like you said, everything can get better.
Yeah.
I'm interested, Booksmart, I get it. There's obviously some parallels with your own life, but this new series, Carol's Second Act, I'm thinking, how do you connect with a 50-year-old woman who's starting again? Where did this all come from? And obviously you talk a lot about with your writing really understanding the characters and really giving them a very clear perspective and point of view.
The idea also is a combination of a number of ideas we've had, but one thing is Sarah and I, as we've been talking about, have been in this particular industry a long time, and we've been working as writers for a long time, and inevitably we would have conversations about what's the thing we would be doing if we weren't doing this, and if in my case it was a veterinarian, and Sarah would talk about maybe going into education, and it was just at one point I think we were there's a show here because everybody has that road not traveled.
I love the premise. Can you outline the premise for her second act?
Yes. Carol's Second Act, it stars Patricia Heaton as a woman who...
So funny.
Yes, we couldn't be luckier to have her. But who, at retirement age, decides to embark on a second act and go to medical school. And so the show picks up her first day as an intern with a group of much younger interns.
Very
in a
funny
hospital.
premise.
Yeah.
She's hanging out with these people who are half her age, right?
Yeah.
And have had a really different experience because she's coming from the experience of being a mom and being a high school teacher for all these years. And a lot of people who go straight through with medicine and medical school, they've got tons and tons of years of education, but maybe a narrower prism to look at the world through. So she's also bringing a totally different idea of how the world works than all of her younger colleagues.
And I think we liked the idea of an older woman. We've always sort of tried to put female characters front and center, but an older woman in this case seemed like almost one of the last people you'd think of to sort of confidently embark on a second career, because we talk about how older women are often, there's often a sense that they ought to just kind of be invisible and shuffle off into the background. And I think we wanted to put that character front and center. We both have strong single mothers who have set examples of strong women for us, and it is a character I think we relate to. And well, although you keep calling us young, we don't always feel young in Hollywood.
Well, the only reason I'd like to have you as the measure of young is then it makes me feel
right,
like
okay.
I'm not so old,
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
We wanted to talk about how young you were this whole time, but didn't want to
Yeah, I
make
know.
things awkward.
You're allowed to, but I think what's so great about what you've done and what you can do in the future is, my daughter's 23 years old, and to see two women who are writing the way you have, and to be able to share your stories the way you have. I mean, the industry for women, for writing women, has changed so dramatically. I've been talking to Bonnie Hunt, who also, because I know you were involved in Second City in Chicago. Bonnie Hunt became one of the first writers, showrunners in network television, and so it's just great to see.
There's an interesting gap, I think, every year. Different people release different data sets about representation of women in the industry. I think in terms of outcomes and the amount of women being hired to direct and write and run things, it's not where we'd want it to be, but we have felt an increasing openness to hearing ideas and pitches. And I think the fact that we are even going to launch a network show this fall with a woman in her 50s
Is that
as
nice
the
to say
center.
that, by the way?
Yeah.
Is that nice to say that?
But it's like, there are a lot of women in their 50s who will watch this show. They don't just go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
They,
What a great feeling, though, to know that you are going to do that. And young women who are, my daughter's age, who are listening and hearing your story, what do you say to them? How do you encourage them to share their stories and that their stories matter?
start telling your stories and then accept the fact that you're gonna get better at telling them. So if the first few times you're not getting the reaction, we've gotten better at our jobs over the past 20 some years, and we'll continue to get better at our jobs. And I think initially, as a young writer, if you put something out into the world and people don't respond to it, you might not be looking at your work on the level of craft. Maybe it's time to take a step back and say, okay, is this as funny as possible, or is this the premise that needs to get this point across? Just to take a second creatively.
Did you always know you were funny, you guys, or did you? I mean, was that something you had growing up where you knew you could make people laugh?
No, when I was younger, I think I was sort of a withdrawn, and I don't want to say, but a shy, a more quiet kid. And I think eventually discovered for myself, if I'm funny, I think it helped me socialize a little bit.
But you were shy, but were you also shy?
I was very serious.
Oh.
And it wasn't until...
I don't see you as a serious person.
I was a pretty serious person and quieter, and now I'm extremely loud. No, but in 8th grade, our grade did a play every year, or at the school I went to, the 8th grade does a play, and I got to be Miss Hannigan. And I basically was okay, I'm going to do everything Carol Burnett did in the movie. And it was great, and I had such a wonderful time, and I was very funny. And then I was I love this feeling. So it was a little bit of a wake-up. I wasn't a funny person before.
I love that you mentioned Carol Burnett. How were you exposed to her? Did someone introduce you? Did you just discover her? Or someone?
I'd watched her in Annie, and I stole her performance. But take from the best. Take from the best. I was 13.
Who else is Miss Hannigan are you going to take?
Wow. Have you ever had a chance to meet her?
I did once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, I stole your performance. And she was like, oh.
Well,
it's very nice to meet you.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you. So that obviously you started into performing at that point, and did you perform as well?
No, I didn't, and I came at it sort of more from a writing angle. I think I was always interested in writing. For me, it was really in college. I actually started college pre-med and quickly discovered that.
Is that the factor that goes into?
It's not unrelated. We have a bit of an interest. This is
Yeah.
me living out that
I
other.
hope you're not projecting to when you're 50 and this is what's going to happen. You're going to suddenly
No.
go, enough with the writing.
No.
This partnership's over. I'm going to become a doctor.
If I couldn't,
I would support her, though. I'd be yeah, do it. Be a doctor.
You go, girl.
No, I just found that I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying the classwork, and didn't, and it didn't feel, something about it didn't feel right to me. And then it was I joined the Lampoon in college, which was it was a humor magazine, and it was just hanging around with people and writing jokes all day. And I felt it was the first time I felt like, oh, these are my people. This is my home. It had
What's that like, by the way, when you're in a room and you're writing and you're feeding off each other? And
it's wonderful. I mean, I feel like maybe it's how Sarah felt when she was, playing Miss Hannigan. But you just, it's so, you feel like this is so much fun. You feel alive. Yes. And I think that, I don't know, I feel aware constantly that it's just this, almost living this dream of like, I'd love to hang around in a room with my friends and write jokes all day. Like, that's what I did in college. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think if you told me,
that's the journey that you're enjoying.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. It's like to get paid for the thing you would do even if you weren't getting paid is special.
I say that often to people. I said that, and Robert Greene also says that in his book, the idea that people separate what they do for a living and then they're working to be able to do the things they love to do.
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
Yeah.
You've got to find something you love to do that you would pay to do if you weren't getting paid. And it sounds like you've got that. And you're with your performance, you were obviously the I guess the place to go would have been Saturday Night Live, right?
And that's what I wanted to do after college.
Yeah.
I should follow up the 8th grade story by being in high school musicals. I was never cast as anything but like a prostitute or like a person in the background in the town, like townsperson.
That's an extreme.
It was
person
a real,
in background or prostitute.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes there were prostitutes in the background. I want to make a big deal out of it. But no. Then in college, I discovered improv, and that was another game changer because it was the vibe that Emily discussed, which is like a very team, like coordinated, supportive approach to just laughing and having a wonderful time. And so yes, I thought I was going to be on SNL, but I was also open to the possibility that that wasn't happening.
That performance bug of yours, I mean, you didn't put yourself as the star of your film. Do you ever have that conversation where you want to be in front of the camera and do that?
Oh, I don't know if I'm very good at performing. I really enjoy it and I love it, but I'm not.
Well, you be the judge.
She is. She's very good at
Can't
performing.
you write something for her? Come on.
Yeah, I've been very lazy and a bad partner.
Yeah.
No, but I also really enjoy writing. It wasn't like, oh, I fell into something.
Yes.
This is I'm mad because I didn't get to do my first thing. Like
right.
Writing for yourself is also an important part of sort of the improv and sketch culture that comes out of Chicago, and is creating material for yourself. And so the writing was always a part of that, and I always enjoyed the writing too.
And I feel like we're always, at one point Sarah and I wrote a short film and we're both in it and just had a blast making it, and nobody made any money in it, but it was just because we enjoyed it. And I feel like even right now this show is keeping us very busy, but we're always sort of trying to do, even if we don't have financial or commercial success from something, we enjoy it, but also feel like the more we do, like I know that just having experience in performing makes me a better writer because you have the actors in mind better. So I think we're just always trying to do as much of it as we can.
I love, just looking at the work that you've done and where the ideas come from and how they're inspired. Can you tell us about Trophy Wife and where some of the inspiration for that
I can tell you
from?
where all the inspiration for that came.
I married a guy who's older than I am, so I'm the trophy wife. The title was always intended to be ironic.
Did you ever imagine you would be a trophy wife?
Oh,
I mean, when you went from being in the background, prostitute,
right? So maybe that was it. No,
right. From
prostitute to trophy wife.
That was the tagline.
Sarah's journey. Yeah, Mom, don't watch this. No, I didn't. I mean, Jeff, my husband, was my next door neighbor when I moved, like one of my early apartments in LA. Yeah,
great material.
And honestly, that show came from Sarah and I would talk about it, but it again was us sort of trying to turn on its head like a stereotype that we'd seen, because here was Sarah who she would talk about how she as the younger wife would show up and maybe get like some nasty looks from some of the soccer moms who just made presumptions about her. But here's Sarah, the most lovely person in the world who genuinely just...
And so young.
Very young.
So
no,
young.
Who legitimately
Benjamin
like fell in love with her next door neighbor and was working and was so loving and wonderful to his children, and she's a wonderful mom. And just the idea that people would just see her and assume that she was this...
How dare they?
...trophy wife. Yes.
I did want to make a t-shirt that said, "We met after the divorce."
Yeah.
Just make it really clear.
Just to make it very, very clear.
Like
our goal had been to create a show sympathetic to the
Right.
trophy wife.
Right.
I think the irony of the title got a little lost and it got muddled, although we are very proud of what
with-
trophy wife was.
Yes, and we wanted to make a show that spoke to the values that we, had about the situation, which is like, this is for the kids.
Yes.
And the adults have to cooperate, even though they're such disparate personalities, they might not want to.
You said one day we ran out of ideas and I married my next door neighbor. It's just such a line. One day I ran out of ideas, married my next door neighbor. A man 20 years my senior with ex-wives and lots of children, and we realized it was too good to pass up.
Yeah.
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 Who convinced who? Did you say, hey, this is a great idea, what you're doing is a great idea, or was it?
I don't remember how it happened. We do, though, steal from our own lives, so we have to keep doing something at least a little interesting so that we'll have ideas.
Right. Something crazy will happen.
Emily, you said we discussed wanting all the characters to feel real and wanting the women, the ex-wives, not to feel like the villain or the crazy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
I mean, you've got this you want these underlying messages.
Definitely.
And I think, that's also in your film. In Booksmart, I saw that as well. I remember our daughter, my daughter, who's 23, she called me from college. She said, hey, Dad, they want me to do honors at university. And I said, that's great. She goes, but Dad, I don't want to do it. And I said, why? And she said, because I won't have a life. I want to have a life. I promise you, I'll do really well, but I don't want to do that. And she was right. It's about finding that balance.
Definitely.
And those two young women maybe wish they could have gone back and relived their high school experience, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They'll do okay in college, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, as we all know, it really doesn't matter down the line.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are succeeding regardless of whether you went
I
to...
wish someone had told me how much it doesn't matter. I would have gone out a few more times.
Regrets? Do you have any regrets about the way...
No,
No.
not really. Yeah.
It's made you who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, I've been involved in television for over 30 years, and the changes in terms of where we get our content and the amount of great content that's out there, it's overwhelming, and it's hard to find. There's just so much good stuff. I mean, I never thought I would say that, but there is a lot of really good content. It's impossible to stay on top of it all.
Yeah.
The idea that someone would sit down and binge watch, does it matter to you whether somebody sits and...
I think if we were on a platform where we knew somebody would sit down and binge watch as opposed to, watch Thursdays at 9:30
on CBS,
we might factor it in just as far as how we would tell the story.
Yeah.
But other than that, like Sarah was saying earlier, I think we're sort of controlling what we can control, which is the content of the show and hoping that it finds the audience and that people enjoy it. But it is hard to know, how streaming platforms affect.
But it's also great that we get to watch it on different times.
Yeah.
Like, Emily recently had a beautiful young daughter, and, we both have kids now. And like, if I had to actually watch TV on appointment viewing, I would never see anything. So now I can finally finish watching The Americans, like 2 years too late, and just boast about how I finished
is that
watching
what
it.
they were talking about?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I'm like, oh. But, and it also allows you to have disparate tastes and explore different worlds. Like, you can love that show, you can love Blackish, you can love all kinds of things, and like get a taste of them all on your own schedule, which is not bad.
Yeah.
The idea of comedy, and you guys have got a gift for making people laugh. It is exciting to see a female perspective in what makes us laugh. Mm-hmm. Right? But for so long we've seen the male perspective, which is quite different. And I think for me, what I enjoyed about...
We have less golf.
Yeah, there's
golf jokes.
Less golf and less like beer jokes. And But for me, it was just really interesting to see what you, as young women, what you found funny. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of men don't get a chance to see that.
Right.
We've seen the other perspective.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I found really interesting.
Our staff is also a diverse group of people. We have a lot of men on the staff, and we're hoping to have that mix. It's not like we want to only tell jokes from the female perspective.
Right.
Funny
is
able
funny.
to see all of it. Yeah.
It's also like funny is funny, and you're giving the joke to the female character.
Yeah.
Like, it might not be in terms of content or context.
Right.
It's just that she's getting to say it.
Yes.
Like, that's the biggest difference, is who's saying the joke.
Yeah, who, yes.
It could be jokes about the same old stuff that we all like to joke about, but, the fact that a female character is getting the punchline is maybe what's different.
It's nice that we also now are at a place where like our male writers will pitch very intelligently in the voice of the female characters, which is also really nice to see. Yeah.
So they have this empathy.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit like wearing an empathy belly. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
For those people who don't know, where a guy walks around with 30 pounds of weight around their, so they know what it's like to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And with Patricia, how did it happen that you managed to get her hooked into the series? Because that's a big catch.
I mean, that was she is, I feel like, a huge part of the reason this show was on the air, and we were so lucky. We had a meeting with Aaron Kaplan, with whom we've worked before and have a great working relationship with, and he told us that Patty was interested in doing something for CBS, and we very much sort of brought this idea together with her in mind and pitched it to her, and we're just sort of off to the races from there once she responded to it.
You had a chance to sit down with her?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
But
was that what was that like, sitting with somebody that you think would be perfect and you're putting your material out there?
I think, again, we sort of were looking forward to it. We felt excited because we felt like this is a great role for her and for a woman her age, and it was really gratifying because she responded that way and was saying a lot of the same stuff back to us that we were feeling, which is that like these are not always the types of roles that she's offered.
And you hear a lot of women who are in their 50s and 60s say that they're starving for roles where they can give that perspective of.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of guys 50, 60 who are getting roles. I mean, even James Bond was still, the guy when he was in his 50s, but for women, they're harder to find those roles.
Exactly.
So she probably was like, wow, thank you.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. And she also very much embodies this character. And I mean, this is her third, she's had a tremendous amount of success in her life, but is tireless and wants to work. And, I think that this felt also accurate for.
Yeah, she's a driven person. And it's great because she can just sort of, in the pilot, and we didn't even talk to her about this. It's just one of those things where you see like a really talented person just doing what they're born to do. Like she had this little like jog in between scenes, like this energy going, and it's so funny and endearing, and also it's just sort of a physical embodiment of what she brings to the character.
Yeah, that physical comedy came. I saw one little clip, a teaser clip, where she's at the hospital, I guess, and she's talking to the younger staff, and there's just this awkwardness in her physicality that.
She is so
just
good.
Comes across, and that for you as writers must feel so good. You're like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's so fun. Like we had her say, like, there's a line in the script where she says thank you, and she just like made a meal of it within her big confrontation scene, and it's just so funny. That will be the GIF.
Yeah, and it was
thank you.
It was never.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
But that was never written as a joke, and she turned it into one of the funniest moments of the script, and it just that sort of thing for all of us, just like. It's what makes this so fun, that you write the script, the actors bring it to life, and then inevitably you find new things that you didn't even expect.
Well, I have some quotes here from you guys with some advice, which I think is really cool.
And I feel like very cringy. Like, when did I say these things?
No,
what
I
did
think this goes back to what you said before, but it's just a good thing to emphasize. When you're not getting paid for it, you should be working on things you love and care about. I think that's just so important, and that's how your voice will really come through. And it seems to me that you guys have really epitomized that. You've always written from a place where you really understand and where you really care, which is great. And Emily, you said, I think success in the industry is a combination of luck, skill, and timing, and it's a question of persistency.
Did I say persistency?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, you did not.
Drunk.
You said You said a question of persistence. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
So if my mom's listening, you'd never hear the end.
Persistence. It's a question of persistence, and you are relentless.
It's hard work and grammar.
Yes.
I think that's what we really
Just
boil
keep
it down to.
Hard work, grammar, Mama. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm putting the glasses on now so I can read.
Actually, my grammar is much worse, so I might have said persistency.
I'm seeing things
My
that aren't
mom will
even on the
tell
page.
you.
But this is really cool. Call that person who your mum ran into at the grocery store, whose lawyer's uncle once worked in Los Angeles. Find someone who knows someone and get them to read your original script. Or find someone who knows someone who works on a TV show and get out there to try to get that job as an intern or a PA. There's something very worthwhile and important about being in the moment and appreciating where you are and working on things that you really want to work on. And I think that's great advice.
Thank
really
you.
good advice.
Good job, me from the past.
Yes, you really, and grammar was
My
Yeah.
really
first
good.
job
Beautiful.
in LA was from my mom's best friend's daughter's boyfriend. There was a job opening on
That is real.
That
real.
is true. There was a job opening at Current TV, which was Al Gore's channel for a little bit. He had sort of, it was a
Yes.
internet/network venture in the early days of finding out what the internet could do. And through that chain, I had a writing packet ready from my experience in Second City, and I sent it out, and I flew out here for like an interview. I had $60 in my bank account. They lost my luggage, and I went to the Gap at the Grove and bought a blue button-down t-shirt very much like this. So I haven't grown. But like, I had to go and like do a trial day, and it was just sort of an accident.
That is actually another just important point or piece of advice, but is to pay your dues a little bit and don't have
Put
an
in the
ego
hard
about
yards.
it. It's
Yeah.
like we both. I mean, I graduated from Harvard and then shortly after I was in LA working as an assistant, making very little money, and you're getting people's lunches, and I think there can sometimes be a feeling of like, but I'm trained for more than this, but it's
Don't skip the part where you were broke in New York and played poker for money.
Oh, that's right. I did that as well. I did do that as well. And when I lost, I didn't have dinner. But it's yeah. Anyway,
You have to pay your dues.
no, but it really is true. And it's like, looking back on it now, in those positions are where you learn almost more than you would have learned had it just come easily.
But also stuff you can draw on in your
Exactly.
writing,
Yeah.
right? Because you suddenly, it makes all your material relatable.
Exactly.
I don't know if anybody has ever said this to you, but you look like somebody who is an Olympic triathlete. Did you know that?
Do I look like Sarah Haskins, the Olympic triathlete?
Yes. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, because we're similar in age, and she's an awesome athlete, and she won the Chicago Triathlon, and all these people called me and said, why didn't you tell us you were in town and that you were running the triathlon? And I was like, I'm sorry, I was just very busy winning. Oh my God, I'd love to meet her someday. I want her to train me. I think that'd be like a funny video.
Well, you could absolutely play her in a movie, because I was looking around at photographs and I came across it and I was like, wow, she's like an Olympic standard triathlete as well as being an amazing writer. What an
can I say?
overachiever. And she went to Harvard?
Yes,
the
that's
thing,
100% me.
That'll be your jump back into performing.
Have you seen the photographs?
I think so. A while back. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah.
What do we expect to see from you in the future? What is the holy grail for you as a writing team?
I think, well, first we have to take care of this show and make it successful and launch it.
Yes.
One step at a time.
One step at a
Yes,
time.
yes.
But then I think we've also worked in other capacities with writers, supervising them, producing their scripts, helping them get places. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, mentoring.
Mentoring, yeah.
And we're very aware of how much we've benefited from people who have helped lift us up. And I think if we're in any sort of position where we can continue that trend and help writers coming up, that we'd
That's
like
really
to do
nice
that.
to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met a lady at the vet the other day.
You have these weird connections, don't you?
Yeah, no, but she
threads
was like in her 80s, and she had like a jaunty striped top, and then we were talking about dogs, and she has 6 dachshunds, and I was like, oh, that's where I'll be. You're my human face app. I want to be you with a fun striped top and like a picture of 6 dachshunds. It's
Yeah.
fine.
That's fine. You'd be happy with that?
Yeah, I'd be very happy with that. I have a little dog, Rosie. It's going to be some version of Rosie. And yeah, but dogs for sure in the picture for both of us. Yeah, and our children.
Yeah. Oh, the children, of course.
Oh, the children.
Sorry.
Yeah. Don't forget about them.
Right, the children.
Yeah.
We want the best for them,
For the children.
not
yes.
the dogs.
So I end the podcast with a question about a road trip and taking some people on a trip. So you can either go together because you just love each other so much, or you can have your own separate road trip and take 3 people with you in the car. And I'm interested to know who you'd take with you. It could be anybody from any time in history.
it's a process of getting to a place where you can spend a lot of time in a car with somebody.
Yes, it is.
So I would take Sarah for sure.
Oh, thank God.
Really? Wow.
I would take my husband, Evan, and I would take my daughter, Frances. And those are people I could spend endless amounts of time with.
You could take Rosie as well.
Thank you for saying
And I
that.
would be like, "Where's my family?"
Yeah. Why didn't we take anyone I know?
Oh,
Well,
now
'cause
the
this is my
pressure's-
road trip. That's
Yes,
why.
that is your road trip.
Yeah.
The pressure's on you. I don't know. You
You don't have to take me. It's okay. You came
No,
on
I would
mean,
like to
you've
take.
already taken
Yeah.
a trip, so
It's a tough
the
decision.
three of us.
Yeah,
on a
we'll
road
go.
trip?
That'll be fun.
there would be a lot of laughing.
I think Tina Fey and Amy Poehler would be super fun. Those were like people I initially really looked at their work and it spoke to me from Second City on. They would be great people to have on a road trip. I know they're fun.
Yeah. Last day on Earth. What would you do with it if you knew you were living out your last day, and you could do whatever you wanted to do?
My answer's going to be very similar.
Yeah.
I'd like go to the beach or go on a hike with my husband and my daughter. If my mom's around, she can come. And Rosie always comes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd go outside with my family and want to eat something like spectacular.
What's that?
Well, there's a version of like a spectacular fancy restaurant, or there's the version where I like gooey mac and cheese. Just like let yourself go.
Hey, it's your
Velveeta
last
City.
day on Earth, you know,
Yeah.
mac
Yeah.
and cheese. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about the consequences.
That's true.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome, and really appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you for having us
Yeah,
on.
this has been
it's
really
our
fun.
honor.
Oh, we randomly ran into each other just downstairs,
Yes.
and then
And I very professionally asked
And then
you to
am-
take a photo with me. And look what happened.
yeah, look at that.
great.
It started with a photograph, and then all of a sudden you're up here. But no, I'm just so excited for you, and I will be there. I will be there. It's on CBS Thursday at
Thank you
9:30.
very
Thank you very much.
That was fun.
No,
Well, thank
laughter
you.
in
It
the
was really
background is
fun. I felt very comfortable.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. To see more great interviews, go to philkeoghan.com and subscribe to BUCKiT with Phil Keoghan wherever you get your podcasts. Please consider rating and reviewing us. And follow BUCKiT, that's BUCKiT with an IT, on Instagram and Facebook. Also, follow me on Twitter @Phil Keoghan. Today's podcast proudly brought to you by BUCKiT Nutrition. Great tasting, high-performance nutrition to power your adventure. Don't forget to go to Amazon.com, search for BUCKiT Nutrition, and use promo code BUCKIT10, that's BUCKiT with an IT, and you'll get a 10% discount on all BUCKiT nutritional products. Just wait until you try the BUCKiT Booster with Manuka Honey.